What does it look like when entire nations are buried under the weight of pollution and crumbling sanitation in 2024? As industrialization races ahead and cities expand beyond control, many countries are left grappling with toxic air, filthy streets, and polluted waterways. The consequences are dire. Public health is at risk, and millions are living in hazardous conditions every day. In this video, we'll dive into the 15 dirtiest countries of 2024, ranked by their alarming pollution levels, failed sanitation systems, and broken waste management infrastructures. Shockingly, India ranks 5th, where women still face the grim reality of defecating in public spaces. Stay with us to see which nations top the list, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights on global challenges shaping our world today. Number 15. Indonesia. Indonesia, with its more than 17,000 islands, is widely regarded for its stunning natural landscapes. However, the country's beauty is increasingly overshadowed by a growing environmental disaster. The Citarum River, a crucial water source for millions, has tragically become one of the most polluted rivers in the world. The contamination stems from unregulated industrial dumping and excessive plastic waste, turning what was once a lifeline for communities into a toxic hazard. Factories along the riverbanks continue to discharge untreated waste directly into the water, affecting local agriculture, water supplies, and marine life. In the bustling capital of Jakarta, home to over 10 million people, the environmental issues extend beyond polluted waterways. The city is choked by air pollution, largely driven by the overwhelming traffic congestion and unregulated industrial emissions. Smog blankets the city on most days, causing respiratory problems for a significant portion of the population. Despite government pledges to improve air quality, rapid urbanization and lax enforcement of environmental laws have made the problem worse. The combination of poor waste disposal practices, insufficient recycling programs, and unchecked industrial growth has created a cycle of pollution that is difficult to break. Indonesia's waste management infrastructure is also severely lacking. Massive amounts of plastic waste, much of which ends up in rivers and eventually the ocean, threaten both the environment and human health. Beaches that once attracted tourists from all over the world are now strewn with plastic debris, endangering the country's tourism industry, a critical component of its economy. This environmental degradation not only affects Indonesia's international image but also exacerbates social inequalities. In rural areas, where access to clean water is limited, communities suffer the most, relying on contaminated rivers for daily needs. The disparity between urban development and rural poverty becomes even more pronounced in the face of these environmental issues. Even though the Indonesian government has launched several initiatives aimed at reducing pollution, the complexity of the problem requires more than just policy changes. Without significant investment in waste management infrastructure, stricter environmental regulations, and consistent enforcement, Indonesia risks further deterioration of its natural resources. Number 14. Mexico. Mexico is grappling with a significant environmental crisis, particularly in its urban areas. The capital, Mexico City, known for its cultural vibrancy, also holds the unfortunate distinction of having dangerously low air quality. Positioned at a high altitude, the city's geography exacerbates pollution by trapping harmful particles in the air. This leads to frequent smog conditions, with air pollution levels often far exceeding international safety standards. A staggering amount of vehicle emissions, coupled with unchecked industrial activities, makes it difficult for the city to clear its skies. The situation is so severe that it has led to widespread respiratory problems among its residents, with children and the elderly being the most vulnerable. Beyond air pollution, Mexico faces an uphill battle with waste management, particularly plastic pollution. The country's coastal areas, some of which are global tourist hotspots, suffer from an influx of marine litter, primarily due to insufficient recycling systems. Despite efforts to encourage recycling, only a small percent of the nation's waste is processed, with much of it ending up in oceans, threatening marine life and damaging coastal ecosystems. In beach towns, the sight of plastic debris washed up on shorelines is becoming disturbingly common, tarnishing Mexico's natural beauty and posing a growing threat to local tourism, a vital sector of the national economy. Complicating these issues is the lack of robust infrastructure to handle waste, especially in rural and coastal regions. Efforts to improve recycling and waste disposal are often hampered by limited resources and inconsistent policy enforcement. The situation is a clear indicator that Mexico's environmental challenges are not just limited to large cities, but extend across the nation, affecting both urban and natural environments. Although the government has launched initiatives to reduce emissions and manage waste more effectively, significant progress remains elusive. These complex issues require urgent, comprehensive solutions, from better urban planning and stricter industrial regulations to nationwide recycling programs that effectively address the root causes of pollution. Number 13. Philippines. The Philippines, a nation of over 7,000 islands, is known for its stunning beaches and rich marine life, but it is also one of the world's largest contributors to marine plastic pollution. With an alarming 36% of its plastic waste ending up in the ocean, the country is facing a serious environmental crisis. Coastal areas, once pristine, are now littered with plastic debris, endangering marine ecosystems and causing long-term damage to the biodiversity that the country is known for. While plastic pollution is a global issue, the Philippines' geographic location makes it particularly vulnerable to the movement of plastic waste through its many waterways and into the ocean. Urban areas in the Philippines are equally affected by the pollution crisis. Major cities such as Manila suffer from inadequate waste disposal systems, where overflowing landfills and poor infrastructure lead to frequent flooding. These floods not only spread waste into residential neighborhoods, but also increase the risk of waterborne diseases. Despite various government initiatives to curb the use of single-use plastics, including bans and restrictions, the country's waste management infrastructure has not been able to keep pace with the rapid population growth and increasing consumption patterns. The result is a system that struggles to cope, with large quantities of uncollected waste continuing to plague both urban and rural communities. This environmental disaster extends beyond just plastic waste. The Philippines is also susceptible to natural disasters such as typhoons, which exacerbate the problem by washing tons of plastic and debris into the ocean. Although there are efforts to address these environmental issues, such as cleanup drives and policies aimed at reducing plastic usage, the scale of the problem requires more robust and sustainable solutions. The fight against pollution is not just a governmental responsibility, but one that requires collective action from both the citizens and private sector to ensure a cleaner, more sustainable future for the country. Number 12. Egypt. Egypt's environmental woes are deeply interconnected, with water pollution, air contamination, and waste management failures all contributing to its ranking. The Nile River, which sustains nearly 100% of Egypt's population and agricultural economy, is increasingly tainted by untreated industrial waste, agricultural runoff laden with fertilizers, and unregulated household sewage. This contamination not only threatens the safety of drinking water for millions, but also disrupts the delicate ecosystem that depends on the Nile for survival. The health impacts are already evident, with reports of waterborne diseases and decreased agricultural productivity due to the toxic substances leaching into the river. The situation in Egypt's urban centers is equally alarming. Cairo, the nation's capital, is infamous for its dangerously poor air quality, making it one of the most polluted cities in the Middle East. Vehicle emissions, unregulated industrial activity, and desert dust combine to produce high levels of particulate matter, which frequently exceed safe limits set by international health organizations. These particles hang in the air, leading to widespread respiratory problems, particularly among children and the elderly. The sheer density of traffic in Cairo, combined with a lack of effective public transportation alternatives, compounds the issue, turning the city into a veritable smog trap. Beyond urban pollution, Egypt's rural areas face a different set of challenges. Waste management systems remain grossly underdeveloped, with large amounts of household and agricultural waste often left uncollected or improperly disposed of. In these rural regions, sanitation is a growing problem, with inadequate infrastructure leading to unregulated waste dumping and a lack of proper recycling facilities. The absence of a comprehensive waste management strategy not only exacerbates pollution, but also contributes to the spread of disease and contamination of natural resources. Despite some government efforts to address these critical environmental issues, including attempts to clean up the Nile and improve air quality monitoring, the scale of the problem is overwhelming. Without significant intervention, the environmental degradation in Egypt may only worsen, putting even more strain on its people and the ecosystems they rely on. Number 11. Pakistan. Pakistan faces a deepening environmental disaster, with pollution and poor sanitation affecting millions of its residents. Karachi and Lahore, the nation's largest cities, are particularly plagued by hazardous air quality. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, air pollution in Karachi exceeds safe levels by 4 to 5 times, with particulate matter, PM 2.5, often reaching over 150 micrograms per cubic meter. Vehicle emissions, coupled with industrial waste and the rampant burning of solid waste, have created an almost unbreathable atmosphere. This pollution contributes to thousands of premature deaths each year, with respiratory diseases accounting for 30% of all health-related issues. In rural areas, the situation is equally alarming. Over 13 million people in Pakistan, particularly in impoverished regions, still practice open defecation due to the lack of basic sanitation facilities. This widespread issue not only degrades the environment, but also fosters the spread of waterborne diseases, including cholera and dysentery, particularly in children under 5. Shockingly, over 40% of Pakistan's water sources are deemed unsafe for human consumption, with contamination from industrial pollutants, agricultural runoff, and untreated sewage being major contributors. This leads to high rates of waterborne illnesses, impacting roughly 20 million people annually, many of whom lack access to adequate health care. Although the government has introduced programs to improve waste management and sanitation, progress has been painfully slow. For example, in Karachi, the city produces over 12,000 tons of waste daily, but only 60% is properly collected and disposed of, leaving vast amounts of waste to accumulate in open areas. The rapid urbanization of Pakistan's cities, with urban populations growing by 3% annually, has exacerbated these issues, outpacing the development of infrastructure designed to handle waste and pollution. Number 10. Nigeria. As the most populous country in Africa, Nigeria is grappling with an escalating environmental crisis that reflects the nation's struggle to keep pace with its rapid population growth. In major urban centers such as Lagos, the waste management system is under immense strain. Every day, the city generates more than 13,000 tons of waste, yet only 40% of it is collected and properly managed, leaving vast quantities of garbage to pile up in landfills and along roadways. This unmanaged waste often ends up in rivers and other waterways, significantly contributing to water pollution. In fact, over 70% of Nigeria's surface water is considered polluted, posing serious health risks to the population, with millions suffering from waterborne diseases. Moreover, Nigeria faces severe air pollution problems, largely driven by vehicle emissions and the widespread use of generators. Due to frequent power outages, nearly 60% of households and businesses rely on diesel or petrol generators, releasing harmful pollutants into the air. This has led to dangerously high levels of particulate matter in the atmosphere, particularly in densely populated areas, where the Air Quality Index, AQI, often exceeds 150, creating significant health risks for residents, including respiratory diseases and premature deaths. Additionally, deforestation remains a critical issue, with Nigeria losing approximately 350,000 hectares of forest each year to agriculture, logging, and urban expansion, further contributing to environmental degradation and loss of biodiversity. Sanitation is another pressing concern. Despite efforts to improve public health, many regions still lack adequate sanitation facilities, leaving millions of people, especially in rural areas, without access to clean water or proper waste disposal systems. This situation exacerbates the spread of infectious diseases, making it harder to address public health challenges. In a country where urban populations are growing by 3% annually, Nigeria must adopt more sustainable environmental policies and invest in infrastructure to tackle these mounting problems. Number 9. Bangladesh. Bangladesh's rapid industrial growth, particularly in the textile and garment industries, has brought significant economic benefits, but also led to an alarming environmental crisis. The once thriving Buriganga River, a critical waterway for Dhaka, has become severely contaminated, with factories dumping vast amounts of untreated chemical waste into its waters. Today, nearly 80% of Dhaka's wastewater goes untreated, and this has had devastating consequences for both aquatic life and human health. In fact, over 60% of the country's rivers are now polluted with industrial waste, severely impacting communities that depend on them for drinking water, fishing, and agriculture. The air quality in Bangladesh is equally concerning. Dhaka, home to over 20 million people, regularly ranks among the top 3 most polluted cities in the world. The Air Quality Index, AQI, often exceeds 200, a level considered hazardous to human health, with major contributors including emissions from factories, vehicle exhaust, and brick kilns. This level of pollution has been linked to a sharp rise in respiratory illnesses, contributing to approximately 195,000 deaths annually across the country, with children and the elderly being the most vulnerable. Compounding these environmental issues is the country's dense population. Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated nations in the world, with over 1,200 people per square kilometer. This has put immense pressure on its already strained waste management infrastructure, particularly in slums and low-income areas where more than 35% of the population lacks access to basic sanitation facilities. The absence of proper waste disposal systems means that solid waste often piles up in streets and drains, further contaminating water sources and creating breeding grounds for diseases like cholera and dengue fever. Governments, industries, and individuals must take action to combat environmental degradation by implementing stricter regulations, adopting cleaner technologies, and ensuring that growth does not come at the expense of public health and the environment. Number 8. China. China's rapid economic growth, while impressive, has come at a tremendous environmental cost, casting a shadow over the country's global success. Despite major government efforts to reduce pollution, cities like Beijing still struggle with dangerously poor air quality. On average, Beijing's Air Quality Index, AQI, exceeds 150, a level considered unhealthy, with smog frequently blanketing the skyline and limiting visibility. This pervasive pollution is largely driven by industrial activities, vehicle emissions, and the extensive use of coal, which still accounts for about 57% of China's total energy consumption. As a result, the country faces significant public health challenges, with respiratory diseases contributing to an estimated 1.2 million premature deaths annually. Waste management is another escalating problem for China. The country produces over 500 million tons of waste per year, driven by its booming consumer economy. While China has implemented measures to manage and reduce waste, only about 60% of waste is properly treated or recycled, leaving the rest to accumulate in landfills or illegal dumping sites. This has led to the contamination of soil and water sources, further exacerbating environmental and health risks. Particularly in rural areas, access to adequate waste disposal remains limited, worsening the problem as China continues to urbanize at an unprecedented rate. The country's economic expansion has shown that unchecked industrial growth can have devastating environmental and social impacts. It's crucial for both the government and citizens to adopt more sustainable practices, from reducing coal dependency to increasing recycling efforts, in order to safeguard the environment and ensure a healthier future. The lesson for the modern world is clear. Economic progress should not come at the expense of environmental degradation, and a balanced approach to development is essential for long-term well-being. Hey, if you're finding this video insightful, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on our notification bell. Your support helps us bring more content like this straight to you. Let's keep exploring the world together. Subscribe now. Number 7. Vietnam. Vietnam's journey towards modernization and urbanization, while remarkable, has come with steep environmental costs. With urbanization accelerating at a rate of nearly 3% per year, the country's waste management systems have struggled to keep pace. This has resulted in Vietnam being the fourth largest contributor to ocean plastic pollution, discharging approximately 730,000 tons of plastic waste into the sea each year. Much of this waste ends up in rivers and along the coastline, with inadequate recycling practices exacerbating the problem. Vietnam's recycling rate remains relatively low, hovering around 27%, compared to developed nations where it exceeds 60%. Urban air pollution is another growing crisis, driven by the 60% increase in vehicle ownership over the last decade and the unchecked expansion of industrial zones. Cities like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi consistently experience air quality index, AQI levels, exceeding 150, which are considered unhealthy for the general population. In fact, particulate matter, PM 2.5, levels in these cities often soar beyond 80 micrograms per cubic meter, more than 4 times the World Health Organization's recommended safe limit. This persistent exposure has led to a surge in respiratory diseases, with studies showing that air pollution contributed to over 50,000 premature deaths in Vietnam in 2023 alone. Moreover, water pollution in Vietnam has reached alarming levels, with 90% of the country's rivers contaminated by industrial waste and domestic sewage. The Red River and Mekong Delta, vital for both agriculture and daily life, are among the most affected. Inefficient wastewater treatment systems mean that only 12% of wastewater is properly treated, leading to widespread contamination and increasing health risks for local populations. To combat these growing environmental challenges, Vietnam must adopt more stringent regulations and invest heavily in waste management and clean energy solutions. Transitioning to a circular economy, where waste is minimized and resources are reused, is crucial for reducing the country's reliance on plastic and lowering emissions. The government has set a target to reduce plastic waste by 75% by 2030, but significant efforts will be required from both industries and individuals to meet this goal. Number 6. Kenya. Kenya's ongoing environmental struggles are deeply intertwined with its inability to effectively manage waste and provide adequate sanitation infrastructure. In urban areas like Nairobi, a city of over 4.4 million people, the sight of towering piles of uncollected garbage is a common one. This lack of efficient waste collection has led many residents to resort to burning their trash, contributing significantly to the air pollution problem. The World Bank estimates that air pollution in Nairobi leads to 12,000 premature deaths annually, with many cases related to respiratory illnesses aggravated by smoke and particulate matter. Meanwhile, in rural areas, open defecation remains a prevalent issue, affecting over 7% of the population. This is largely due to the lack of proper toilet facilities, with the rural sanitation coverage standing at just 30%. The practice not only compromises human dignity, but also contaminates water sources, leading to outbreaks of diseases such as cholera and typhoid. The strain is further compounded by Kenya's rapid population growth, which increases by around 2.3% each year, outpacing the government's efforts to provide basic sanitation and waste disposal services. Local authorities, already stretched thin, struggle to keep up with the mounting waste and health challenges, particularly in informal settlements, where over 60% of Nairobi's population resides. To tackle these issues, Kenya has launched various initiatives aimed at improving waste management and sanitation. However, these efforts are often hindered by limited resources and a lack of enforcement. The government aims to increase urban waste collection rates to 90% by 2030, but achieving this goal will require not only substantial investments, but also the active participation of communities in adopting better waste disposal habits. Number 5. India. India's rapid growth has not been matched by improvements in its sanitation infrastructure, particularly in rural areas where open defecation continues to be a widespread problem. Over 500 million people in India lack access to basic toilets, and women are disproportionately affected. Many women, due to the absence of private facilities, are forced to defecate in open spaces, which exposes them to serious health risks, including infections and personal dangers such as harassment and assault. Despite government efforts to improve sanitation through programs like the Swachh Bharat mission, which aimed to eliminate open defecation by 2019, the issue remains prevalent in 15% of rural households. India's urban areas are also facing severe environmental degradation. The air quality in cities like Delhi ranks among the worst globally, with air pollution frequently reaching hazardous levels. The average concentration of PM 2.5, a dangerous fine particulate matter, often exceeds 300 micrograms per cubic meter in Delhi during peak pollution months, which is more than 12 times the World Health Organization's safe limit. This relentless smog causes numerous health issues, including respiratory diseases, and contributes to an estimated 1.6 million deaths annually due to air pollution. Moreover, the country's waste management system is under tremendous strain. Urban areas generate an estimated 62 million tons of waste per year, but less than 60% of this waste is collected, and only 20% is treated. The remaining waste piles up in cities and rivers, exacerbating pollution and creating unsanitary living conditions for millions. The infamous Yamuna River, which flows through Delhi, is often described as a dead river due to the high levels of industrial pollutants, raw sewage, and garbage clogging its waters. Number 4. Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. The DRC's environmental issues are deeply rooted in the country's political instability and lack of infrastructure. Over 50% of the population lacks access to clean drinking water, forcing many to rely on contaminated water sources. This has led to widespread waterborne diseases such as cholera, with thousands of cases reported each year. In rural areas, where infrastructure is nearly non-existent, open defecation remains a common practice, particularly among the 70% of the population who live without access to basic sanitation facilities. This contributes significantly to the contamination of water sources, further perpetuating the cycle of disease. Compounding these sanitation issues is the country's nearly absent waste management system. In cities like Kinshasa, home to over 15 million people, waste is often dumped in open areas or rivers, leading to massive environmental and health hazards. The lack of formal waste disposal systems means that only about 10% of the country's waste is properly managed, leaving the rest to pollute the environment and endanger public health. This environmental neglect is further aggravated by mining activities, which, while essential to the country's economy, generate significant pollution. Toxic chemicals from mining operations, including heavy metals, seep into rivers and soil, contaminating local ecosystems and making agriculture unsafe in some regions. To address these pressing issues, international organizations, alongside the Congolese government, must prioritize investments in waste management and sanitation facilities. Without urgent action, the environmental and health crisis will continue to deepen, endangering millions of lives and preventing the country from achieving sustainable growth. Number 3. Sudan. Sudan ranks among the dirtiest countries globally, struggling with environmental degradation deeply tied to ongoing conflicts and severe infrastructural deficiencies. Over 17.3 million people lack access to clean water, and the situation worsens in conflict zones where waste management systems are either non-functional or completely absent. This issue is particularly alarming in rural areas, where more than 45% of the population resorts to open defecation, a practice that accelerates the spread of waterborne diseases such as cholera and dysentery. The urban centers aren't exempt from environmental problems either. Cities like Khartoum face staggering levels of air pollution with particulate matter, PM 2.5, concentrations often exceeding 70 micrograms per cubic meter, more than 7 times the World Health Organization's recommended safe levels. Additionally, waste collection services are nearly non-existent, leading to heaps of uncollected garbage lining the streets, further degrading air quality and contributing to disease outbreaks. These environmental challenges in Sudan not only harm public health, but also hinder economic development. The lack of clean water and proper sanitation has led to increased healthcare costs, while air pollution decreases productivity. In Khartoum alone, air pollution-related illnesses result in a 10% reduction in workforce efficiency, severely impacting the economy. Sudan's critical situation underscores the urgent need for international aid and sustainable policies to rebuild infrastructure. Solutions such as implementing clean water projects, introducing basic waste management systems, and addressing air pollution must be prioritized. Sometimes, access to clean water and proper sanitation is often overlooked, but Sudan's crisis serves as a reminder of how fragile these systems can be in areas ravaged by conflict. Number 2. Haiti. Haiti, ranked among the dirtiest countries in the world, faces immense environmental and sanitation challenges, largely stemming from its status as one of the poorest nations in the Western Hemisphere. Approximately 42% of Haiti's population lacks access to basic sanitation facilities, resulting in widespread open defecation. This issue severely contaminates water sources and contributes to frequent outbreaks of waterborne diseases, most notably cholera, which has claimed thousands of lives in the past decade. Compounding these problems is Haiti's inadequate waste disposal infrastructure, worsening pollution and public health risks. Deforestation, another critical issue, has ravaged over 98% of Haiti's forests, driven by the population's dependence on firewood for cooking and heating. The loss of forest cover not only accelerates soil erosion, but also depletes agricultural productivity, deepening the country's cycle of poverty and environmental degradation. These interconnected issues demonstrate the urgent need for sustainable solutions. Without addressing basic sanitation, reforestation efforts, and proper waste management, Haiti's public health and economy will continue to suffer. The global community must advocate for sustainable development in vulnerable nations like Haiti, ensuring that access to sanitation, clean water, and environmental stability becomes a priority. As the world progresses, no country should be left behind in the pursuit of health and environmental well-being. Number 1. Chad. Chad ranks as the dirtiest country in the world in 2024, plagued by severe environmental and sanitation challenges. Approximately 68% of the population has no access to basic sanitation facilities, which has led to widespread open defecation. This lack of toilets not only contaminates water sources, but also fuels the spread of diseases like cholera, making everyday life perilous for its citizens. Compounding this crisis is Chad's dire waste management system, or rather, the lack of one. With no structured system in place, waste accumulates in both rural and urban areas, posing a serious health risk to the population. Adding to these problems is the pollution from agricultural runoff, which worsens the already scarce availability of clean drinking water. More than 60% of the population lacks access to safe water, further deepening the country's public health crisis. Chad's chronic underdevelopment, poverty, and political instability only exacerbate these issues, making it one of the most hazardous places to live in terms of sanitation and overall health. The government's limited resources and inability to address these critical problems leave millions vulnerable to disease and environmental hazards. In today's world, access to basic sanitation is something many people take for granted, but in Chad, the struggle is real and constant. It serves as a reminder of how essential these systems are to maintaining health and well-being. Global attention and intervention are desperately needed to help Chad build infrastructure, improve waste management, and provide access to clean water. Without these steps, the country will continue to face a grim reality where public health is at constant risk. The countries on this list serve as a stark reminder of the pressing need for global action to address the environmental and sanitation crises that millions face every day. From inadequate waste management to severe pollution, these issues transcend borders, calling for international cooperation, increased investment in infrastructure, and sustainable solutions. Tackling these challenges is not just essential for the well-being of these nations, but for the health and future of our entire planet. If we unite in our efforts, a cleaner, healthier world is within reach. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth content on global issues and how we can all contribute to creating a better future.